Okay guys, welcome back to another class. आज के क्लास में we're going to learn about breakaway gap and inverted fair value gap. Okay, ये दोनों different topic है. And if you guys are from Udemy, you guys may know what is breakaway gap and what is inverted fair value gap. But also I'm going to discuss in this mentorship as well. When we're going to talk about entry when we're going to take entry on lower time frame, then definitely it is going to help us to understand where is the breakaway gap, what is inverted fair value gap. Okay, this inverted fair value gap is going to help us in future when we're going to talk about entry. Breakaway gap is not something like it's going to work all the time. Okay, but it's better to know what is breakaway gap, uh, and definitely it will help you to do your analysis. Okay, and of course, in future class, when we're going to talk about entry, we will use this two concept as well in future class. Okay, but for now, just take a basic understanding of what is breakaway gap and what is inverted fair value gap. Okay, so first let's discuss about the breakaway gap. Okay, so breakaway gap is nothing; it's a fair value gap. Okay, let me type this also. Breakaway gap is nothing; it's a फेयर वैल्यू गैप बेसिकली। ओके, जो नॉर्मल हम लोग का फेयर वैल्यू गैप इम्बैलेंस होता है, सो ब्रेकअवे गैप में मैं यहाँ पे क्रॉस बना रहा हूँ। ओके, सो वी डोंट एक्सपेक्ट द फेयर वैल्यू गैप कि वो फेयर वैल्यू गैप टैप करे बेसिकली। व्हाट आई मीन, लेट मी एक्सप्लेन। यू कैन सी हियर वी हैव दिस फेयर वैल्यू गैप, राइट? थ्री कैंडल फॉर्मेशन, यू गाइस नो कि फेयर वैल्यू गैप इज थ्री कैंडल फॉर्मेशन। काफी टाइम यू हैव सीन, फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से दिस, लेट्स ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड हियर। ओके, अगर यहाँ पे समझ पाओगे तो इट विल बी इजी फॉर मी टू एक्सप्लेन in chart also. Okay, let's say price move from this low to this high. Okay, and you have maybe seen we have created fair value gap here, one fair value gap here, right? Of course, you guys have seen this in your trading experience if if you're trading ICT from some time basically. Okay, so let the price move from this low and this high. And here we created fair value gap. Here we created fair value gap as well. Now some of you might be waiting for the deeper retracement. You're waiting for deeper retracement to tap this fair value gap, right? But most of the time you guys have seen key market retrace only to this fair value gap. Okay, this bullish fair value gap, and price continue trading higher. And you was waiting for this fair value gap to tap. Okay, you was waiting for this fair value gap to tap, and market ये fair value gap tap ही नहीं किया, and it continued traded higher from this fair value gap. So why this happened? So basically, maybe we have created here breakaway gap. Okay, so let me explain you guys what is breakaway gap. So here you can see we have this fair value gap, the three candle formation, right? So we have simple fair value gap here, right? So what is breakaway gap and how we will identify breakaway gap? Simple. When we create fair value gap, when we create, just listen me carefully, okay, and take notes. I am not here. I am not here to give you guys everything. Not here to type everything for you guys. Okay, so you have to listen me carefully what I am saying and just take notes. Okay, so you can see we have this fair value gap, three candle formation, right? So we have this fair value gap. So once we create the fair value gap, okay, now you guys can easily identify fair value gap, right? So once we create the fair value gap, when the third candle, okay, always remember breakaway gap is basically when the third candle either on the bullish or bearish example, okay, I am showing you guys bullish example, but it same applies on bearish. When the third candle closed above the second candle high, okay, so you can see second candle का high ये है, right? Second candle का high ये है, right? So let's mark this second candle ka high here. So when the third candle, this is the third candle, right? This is the third candle. So when the third candle body, okay, this is our body closing right now here, okay? So when the third candle body closed above the second candle high, so second candle high was this, right? So you can see the third candle closed above the second candle high. So this is our breakaway gap. Okay. So when the third candle closed above the second candle high, so this is our breakaway gap. Okay. Also, I mark in a lower time frame as a back. Okay. Breakaway gap for a short form. Okay. So when we create this type of fair value gap, we don't expect price to retrace all the way down to this fair value gap. Okay, because the momentum was very strong. Momentum was very strong. We created, we are basically in hurry. Maybe we have some liquidity here. Okay, we will talk in later what is liquidity. So price was very, price was in hurry basically, and third candle closed above this second candle high. That's showing momentum towards upside basically. Okay, so maybe we will not go, maybe we will not come back all the way down to this fair value gap, and maybe from here we continue trading higher basically. Okay, so let me show you another example. Now, for example, here you first mark the fair value gap. What fair value gap can you see in this example here? You can see we have created this fair value gap here, right? We created this fair value gap, bullish fair value gap. Okay, also we created this bullish fair value gap here as well. Okay, and don't only see the color. Color can be different. It can be bearish candle as well. This one can be a bearish candle. Okay, just understand the concept. Okay, don't think every time we need same three bullish candle and one bearish candle. No, that's not a concept basically. I'm just explaining what is breakaway gap. Okay. So you can see we have created fair value gap here as well, and we have created fair value gap here as well. So tell me which one is breakaway gap? This one, right? This one is our breakaway gap, right? Because why this is breakaway gap? Because this third candle is closing above the second candle high. You can see second candle high was this, and it is closing above the second candle high. So this is our breakaway gap, and this is our fair value gap as well. But this one is not our breakaway gap. Why? Because this third candle is not closing above the second candle high. Okay, it can definitely wick, but we need body closer. Okay, you can see still we not closing above the second candle high. So this is our fair value gap. Okay, so if we're looking for the entry, if we're looking for a deeper retracement, then maybe price will not going to tap this lower fair value gap. Maybe we'll tap only this blue shaded fair value gap and continue higher basically. Okay, so that's basically a breakaway concept. Okay, same applies on the bearish side as well. Okay, so let me show you guys few example so you guys can understand. Okay, so if you guys can see price from this swing high to this swing low, can you guys mark by your own where is breakaway gap, where is fair value gap? Can you spot here price from this low to this high? So here you can see we have created one fair value gap here, right? We created one fair value gap here. We created one more fair value gap here, right? And also we created one more fair value gap here, right? So now if I have to look for bullish move, which area will be good for looking for the bullish move basically? Can you spot where is breakaway gap? So you can see this third candle. Okay, this was the first candle, right? Down close candle, then up close candle, then up close candle. This was the third candle. You can see this third candle is closing above the second candle high, right? So this lower one is our basically breakaway gap, right? Breakaway gap. Then if you see this fair value gap as well, this one, okay, this one, this third candle is also closing above the second candle high, right? First candle was this, second candle was this, third candle was this. So we created fair value gap here. This is also a breakaway gap because the third candle is closing above the second candle high. Now, if you see this fair value gap here, this fair value gap, let's mark this bullish. Okay, let's mark this blue, sorry. So if you see the third candle is not closing above the second candle high, right? So this is our fair value gap basically. You can see second candle was this bullish candle, third candle is not closing above the second candle high. So this is our basically fair value gap. So if you expecting price to trade all the way down, then of course it can do. Okay, it's this breakaway gap is not something that it's most of the time it is going to be accurate. Okay, but sometimes it gives basically a basic understanding. Maybe if you're looking for a deeper retracement towards this fair value gap or towards this fair value gap for the looking for the long, maybe market will not tap this fair value gap lower one or this lower one. Maybe we will tap only this fair value gap and continue trading higher. So if we see any confirmation in this fair value gap, once market tap this fair value gap and on lower time frame it gives confirmation, then we can look for the setup at this fair value gap instead of waiting for deeper retracement. Okay. And if you see, we tap this fair value gap, okay, and continue traded higher basically. Okay. So this is what I am saying. This is what is breakaway gap basically. I hope you guys now understand what is breakaway gap. Okay, for example, if you see in this price leg as well, okay, for example, from this low to let's say this high, okay, can you spot fair value gap or a breakaway gap? So you can see, let me do this. Okay, this was the first candle, right? Second candle was this, third candle was this. So you can see the third candle is closing above the second candle high, and you can see very strong momentum close, right? Very strong bullish closer, right? Above the second candle high, right? So this fair value gap is our basically what? Breakaway gap, right? This is our breakaway gap, right? And the above one, you can see this is our fair value gap. Okay, this one is not a breakaway gap. Why? Because the third candle is not closing above the second candle high, right? This was the high of second candle, right? So this third candle is not closing above the second candle high. So this is our fair value gap, right? So if we're looking for the setup, maybe we will not tap this breakaway gap, maybe we will fill this fair value gap, and maybe we will not come all the way down to this fair value gap. Okay, and you can see price tap this fair value gap here, and you can see, of course, we have seen one bullish candle here. Here also we have seen some momentum upside. Later definitely we tap this breakaway gap, but if let's say price was something like this, okay, so what you going to look for the trade basically? I am going to look for trade at this fair value gap because this might become a breakaway gap. Maybe we will not come and tap this fair value gap. Okay. So if once price tap this level, then I can look for the setup instead of waiting for this deeper retracement towards this fair value gap. I hope you guys understood this concept. Let me show you one bearish example. Then we will jump on inverted fair value gap. So I'm just giving you guys a bullish example for bearish. You guys, it's your homework to find bearish breakaway gap. But remember, not always it is going to happen. Again, I am saying, not always you will see. For example, we created one here breakaway gap and here one fair value gap. Okay, not always you will see market is tapping this fair value gap and always pushing higher. Okay, do back test, collect data, then according to data you will know how many times it can or it cannot basically. Okay, but again I'll say sometime also you're going to see market doing a deeper retracement toward this fair value gap that we marked as a breakaway gap and then shooting higher. Okay, but of course every time every trade you take, it's always a probability game. Okay, and just do backtest and you will understand basically. Okay, and now let's talk about basically what is inverted fair value gap. So basically, what is inverted fair value gap? It's a very simple concept, okay? And listen me carefully again, okay? It has nothing to do with breakaway gap, okay? Breakaway gap is a very different concept, and inverted fair value gap is a different concept. So don't mix it basically, okay? So in this right now, we're going to talk about basically inverted fair value gap, okay? So I hope everyone here know about support and resistance. Okay. Basically, what is support basically? When price is taking support at one level, right? When I hope everyone have learned about support resistance. So what is support basically? When the price is taking support at this level, okay, from where it is bouncing, and resistance from where it's rejecting, right? So everyone know about support resistance. What is fair value gap? What is fair value gap? I'm not talking about inverted fair value gap. Okay, I'm talking about fair value gap. What is fair value gap? It's also support resistance, right? On bullish fair value gap, you look for support. On bearish fair value gap, you look for the resistance, right? And if you remember support resistance trading, right? If let's say we break this support, if we break this support area, okay, if we break this support area, then if we break this support area, you can see we trade it lower and break this support, right? So what it becomes then? It becomes resistance, right? So our support becomes resistance. So if price tap this एरिया जहाँ पे सपोर्ट मिल रहा था हम लोग को, जहाँ से मार्केट बाउंस कर रहा था, it becomes resistance. So now we can look for the sell at this area. I'm not teaching you guys support resistance. I'm just teaching you guys that support, once support breaks, it turns resistance, and once resistance break, it becomes support, right? Simple concept. So in fair value gap also it's same thing, okay? So let's say we have this bearish fair value gap here as an example. It same applies on the bullish side as well. So let's say we have this bearish fair value gap, okay? When we tap this bearish fair value gap, what we expecting? We expecting resistance here, right? We expecting resistance here from this bearish fair value gap, and we expecting price to continue trade lower, right? But let's say in this scenario, okay, price tap this fair value gap, but instead of continue lower, we continue price trading higher, okay? So हम लोग इस fair value gap को respect नहीं किए. This bearish fair value gap didn't get respected and price started shooting higher and higher, okay? So this is what it becomes inverted fair value gap. So ये जो fair value gap resistance का काम करने वाला था यहाँ पे, okay, जो यहाँ पे bearish fair value gap का काम करने वाला था, now it can act as a support basically, okay? So this is going to become our inverted fair value gap because price didn't hold this level, right? So maybe if we in future if we come to this area, okay, this area जहाँ पे हम लोग bearish fair value gap form किया था, maybe it will take support here, okay, and maybe we can see price continue higher, okay, and same applies on the bullish side as well. So let me show you guys example so you guys can understand basically. Let's come to the chart, and you can apply this on any time frame basically, okay? And also breakaway gap you can apply on any time frame. It's not only we're going to use on daily, weekly, we're going to use on all time frame. But definitely when we're going to talk about entry, when I'll make entry videos, definitely that time we're going to use breakaway gap and inverted fair value gap. I'm just teaching you guys this because at least you know what is breakaway gap and what is fair value gap for now, okay? So let me use the replay mode quickly for you guys. So here you can see, I know I'm showing you weekly time frame, but it applies on the lower time frame as well. But just stick with weekly and daily, okay? Right now, so in future we can learn more about higher time frame narrative. But just focus on the concept right now here, okay? So here you can see what we have. What we have here, a fair value gap, right? A bearish fair value gap here, right? So what we expecting from this area? What we expecting from this area? We expecting if price retrace to this fair value gap, okay, sorry, to our bearish fair value gap, then once we tap this bearish fair value gap, then we can look for the lower prices, right? Because this is bearish fair value gap, right? But for example, as you guys know, not all the time we're going to respect everything. Definitely some fair value gap fail, some bullish order block may fail, but everything is about probability, okay? So this is what we're looking from this area. We're looking from this area rejection towards downside, right? So this is what basically our resistance in, if you talk about simple support resistance retail concept, right? This here we expecting some resistance, right? So but let's say here price the candle basically, okay, once candle closed above this area, above this bearish fair value gap, you can see the candle is closing above this fair value gap, then this is our basically simple inverted fair value gap, okay? We need candle closer above the area basically, okay? So I hope you guys getting it, okay? So you can see in this candle we closed above this fair value gap. So now this is our basically what inverted fair value gap. So maybe in future if we come to this price we can continue trading higher, okay? So let's see. Oh, sorry, let me delete this. So here you can see here we tap this inverted fair value gap, right? We tap this inverted fair value gap here you can see, and you can expect continue momentum to the upside here, okay? And you can see right now we basically pushing from this fair from this bearish fair value gap is inverted fair value gap. Okay, I know this is going to be too much for some of you, and if you guys going to struggle in this, then of course just leave it. Okay, it's not a very necessary part to learn. With time, you will easily identify basically. Okay, but if you guys struggling right now, just ignore it. But of course, I'll say one thing here. Once you guys watching this video, then definitely just go and practice. Okay, just practice, just spend time in the market. How you will understand how you can easily find inverted fair value gap or fair value gap on order block if you spend time. Okay, if you train your mind, if you train your eyes basically, right? And you can see here jahan pe, and now let's come to the topic again. Okay, so here you can see here we created this bearish fair value gap, right? Here we created this bearish fair value gap. So यहाँ पे जहाँ पे bearish sign शो करना चाहिए था, but यहाँ market candle close हुआ upside, so now it's taking support here. Okay, simple concept. Resistance turns to support, support turns to resistance. Okay, and if I delete those things, we can see here also we have this fair value gap, right? We have this bearish fair value gap, but in this candle you can see candle closed above the bearish fair value gap, right? Candle closed above this bearish fair value gap. So what this becomes, it becomes basically inverted fair value gap, right? Inverted fair value gap. Sorry, spelling mistake. So it becomes inverted fair value gap. So what we're expecting, we can expect price can take support here and continue trading higher. Okay. So basically resistance turns to support. Okay. And to see here also, let me do replay so you can see opposite example as well. So you can see we have this, sorry, not this box, this one. Okay. So here you can see we have this bullish fair value gap. So what we're expecting from this bullish fair value gap? Once fair value gap tap, we expecting price to continue trading higher. Okay, but let's say in this scenario, candle. Okay, so here you can see we didn't respected this bullish fair value gap and candle very aggressively closing below the fair value gap. So what it becomes? It becomes inverted fair value gap. So what you can anticipate? You can anticipate if price will tap next week at this area, we can look for continue uh, price lower basically, right? And if you see, we tapped a little bit, okay, and you can see how price reacted at that level, okay. So I hope you guys now understand what is breakaway gap, what is fair value gap. Just have a basic understanding, okay. And of course, in future class, we will use this concept when we're going to talk about entry. Just back test, and if you guys have any question, just let me know in the group so I can help you. Thank you for watching this video, guys. See you on the next video.